Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal, a production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. And today I am here to review Solid Source of Steel, which is the fourth full-length album from Swiss heavy metal band Sin Starlett, which was released through Metalizer Records on February 22nd via the record and of course CD format. Alright. Again, if you've been at least one of those that at least followed the new wave or traditional heavy metal movement, especially during its infancy in the mid-2000s, Sin Starlett was one of those kind of bands. They were kind of were there pretty mid there around, again, bands like Ram and Bullet and, of course, Enforcer and so on. And again, being formed all the way back in 2005 and releasing about 3 full-length albums, and of course this being their fourth one under their belt, again beginning since of course their demo in 2006 and their very first album, Call to the Punisher, from 2008. I know I'm looking back at the screen there. But again, into 2012 with Throat Attack, and then of course then Digital Overload in 2016. So here we are with Solid Source of Steel. So without further ado, let me get into, of course, Solid Source of Steel by Sin Starlett. Okay, so before I really get into any of my overall thoughts on this particular, album from Sin Starlett, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs around this album, how many songs are on this album, and what is the time length for this album. And since we have at least about 8 tracks here, it all clocks in at the length of 48 minutes and 37 seconds. And of course, these 8 songs are beginning with the title track, Rule or Obey, Straight and Ready, Street Light Domino, Struck Down, which is not a Y&T cover, Blessed by the Shot, Waves of Humantia. Alright, I hope I pronounced all that correctly there. And then, of course, ending with Iron Stamina. So, there is your 8 songs there. Again, this is definitely very much at times can be seen as typical of the new wave for traditional metal movement. Again, these guys were, of course, one of the stalwarts at times. They were definitely were a part of that movement to begin with. Them early on, again, like with Ram and so on. And I would say they're very much similar to a band like Ram, because these guys can experiment a little bit in terms of, even though it's not all that experimental, but they can in terms of their structuring and what they do in terms of how epic, I guess, that they can make their songs, and for also adding in all sorts of very atmospheric sound effects and synth sounds and everything, as like intros and everything. Again, probably taken from the, for example, the school of Iron Maiden in a way. And this album is very much, for the most part, taken from the school of Iron Maiden, especially mid-80s, or at times maybe mostly mid to late 80s period of Iron Maiden, for example. Again, I can definitely hear a lot of comparisons, for example, to like Somewhere in Time, and of course, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son period of Iron Maiden, but without the really weird sort of almost Yankee kind of herky-jerky kind of 80s production, but more of a slightly raw production that might be more in line with mostly maybe the production values of like Peace of Mind or even Power Slave, for example. That's the kind of the vibes that I get. Musically, and its compositions is mostly very similar to, let's say, again, albums like Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son, but yet it has the production values and mixing values of like the earlier Iron Maiden albums, like, for example, again, Made Number the Beast, Peace of Mind, and Power Slave, and so on. Again, all, of course, the 80s albums, for the most part, were produced by Martin Birch, just that Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son had some really, the 80s production was really kind of, were a little bit too overpowering on those albums for me. But musically, I can hear those, and it's really definitely heard. Let's say on songs like the title track, "Rule or Obey," and of course even to other songs like "Iron Stamina," "Straight and Ready," and whatnot. All kind of have that sort of feel. But a really solid source of steel, the title track here, definitely has the big Iron Maiden influence on here. It really does. I mean, it begins with the very, again, that sort of almost very synth-based atmospheric intro, which again lasts for at least a minute there before it goes into, of course, it's you almost think it's gonna go straight into like almost a Judas Priest-like track, but then when it actually gets in the actual song with the galloping guitars and the pacing, it ends up being very Iron Maiden-esque. Again, I've seen a lot of people compare Sin Starlett to Judas Priest, but for the most part on this album, I hear a lot of Iron Maiden influences on this one with Sin Starlett than I do with Judas Priest. The only other track that I probably can hear the Judas Priest influences is on the song Struck Down, which is technically one of the longer songs on the album. Actually, Rule or Obey and Struck Down are the longest songs on here because they all clock in at the length of 7 minutes and 33 seconds. But Struck Down is probably the more anthemic-based, straightforward heavy metal track of the album here. Because, again, the way it begins with almost a slight sort of... It almost has a little bit German feel, because I can get... if I gotta make some really obscure reference, would be the band Talon, with some of the songs off of, like, Vicious Game. Their very final album from, like, 1987. But it definitely has a clear, almost Judas Priest influence, but even at times, maybe some slight... taking some little tricks in there, maybe from, let's say, someone like AC/DC, for example. But, again, which 80s heavy metal band didn't kind of use some of those Angus Young or Malcolm Young style, guitar techniques into their style, but combining it with the more anthemic metallic structuring of, like, again, British metal giants such as Iron Maiden or Judas Priest. But Struck Down is one that really kind of really embodies some of those, all of that. Because it is very much an anthemic song, and it's crazy that this is one of the longer songs on it. Because with the song like this, it probably could have been at least maybe 4 minutes, or at least maybe roughly 5 minutes, instead of 7 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, I'm not knocking it, but it just is kind of something that they went with that. But that is also where I can make the comparisons to Ram, who've done the same exact thing, but the thing is, I can always think the Ram does a little more grittier in a way. It's a lot more heavier. Here, it's very more straightforward and kind of typical, but still, it works in its favor, and I think I get what Sin Starlett are definitely doing. And it's a very fun song. It's very catchy. It's got a hook to it, and it's easily one of my absolute favorite songs off the album to begin with. But still, a time like this kind of crazy for a song like this for me. So there you go. But besides that, while I've made plenty of Iron Maiden comparisons, at the same time, there was a lot of almost Judas Priest-esque sort of speed metal songs that you do get on here. And that's if you heard, but maybe songs like, for example, I think it would be Streetlight Domino or Straight and Ready, or for the most part, and of course, Waves of Hamartia, or definitely have that almost very speed metal aesthetic to these songs, for an example. And of course, Waves of Hamartia kind of begins with a little soundbite, though. I don't know what it's taken from, but it definitely has to be some sort of almost science fiction based thing there, or maybe a show or movie, some sort of that. Maybe an audio track from another record. I don't know, but it's taken from something like that, and it works in at least whatever they got for the title here of the song. But all in all, there's really nothing here that's actually bad to begin with. Everything has that, again, clear 80s anthemic heavy metal feel and aura to it that I think really kind of elevates the album. Even the artwork kind of gives that, even though the artwork seems more 70s-like. Almost it seems like it would be the cover like a heavy metal magazine, or even one of those K-Tel record compilation albums, like or Mausoleum, I guess, in a way, too. It's like they really kind of went for something that really kind of embodies that sort of very sort of cheesy, almost very, or just very science fiction based sort of heavy metal artworks that you saw back then. but at the same time, I get a little bit of a Queen vibe for some weird reason, too. It's just, again, the artwork. Even the background it's got like a rainbow. So that's where I also kind of feel it has a lot of slight 70s feel. Again, maybe a nod to Rainbow. I don't know. Either way, it's all of this is, I think, a nice package to begin with. And I think musically, I think it's a solid album from beginning to end. There's really nothing bad here. Some great leads there, some hooky riffs there, and some great vocals here and there that really kind of really work in a lot of the song's favors in a way. It might turn some people off, might be a little acquired taste, but for me, I think it fits these songs very well. So I really don't have anything else to say other than I think all of these songs are solid to begin with. So there we go, folks. There's my overall thoughts on Solid Source of Steel, the fourth album from Sin Starlett, and I'm giving it the rating of a 9.80 out of 10. Again, it's a very solid album from these guys. Again, I was very familiar with Sin Starlett to begin with, but I just never really dived a whole lot into their actual full albums. So this is the first one, and again, I think I'm impressed by some of the songs to begin with. It's still a solid, catchy heavy metal to begin with. So there we go. As far as highlight songs for me, again, the title track, Straight and Ready, and Struck Down are my highlights for the album. Again, if you are familiar with Sin Starlett, and you probably have checked out Solid Source of Steel, now, again, if you have any positive or negative thoughts, you can leave them in the comment section below. But if you've never checked out Sin Starlett, nor have you ever checked out this album, I definitely recommend it. I think it's definitely worth a listen here. So there we go. Hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrasher saying I'm out. I'm going to see you all later. Take care, everyone.